John Margiba from Gracia. This is the Rorschach, Georgia update from the 12th of September, 2024. Quick summary of what's going down in Georgia. Tuesday the 10th, ruling party, the Georgian Dream, or Otsneba, unveiled the first 20 candidates on their electoral list. Top of the list is Bidzina Ivanishvili, making a comeback for the third time. Ivanishvili has been actively involved in politics recently and has even introduced bulletproof glass into local politics, which has further fueled speculation about his paranoia. Two new and well-known figures have joined the list. Number 6 is Lasha Talakhadze, a world-renowned weightlifter. It's no surprise since Talakhadze has been an active supporter of Otsneba for years. Remains to be seen if he'll be able to raise the party's rating, probably the heaviest weight he's ever attempted to lift. Much more unexpected is number 10, Geno Petriashvili, an acclaimed wrestler who recently won Olympic gold. His addition to the list of the pro-Russian party has surprised many, particularly after he had been kidnapped and held in the Russian-occupied Tkhinvali region when he was a kid. Russian law remains a hot topic in the news. The deadline for voluntary registration has already passed. Very, very few organizations did. However, this year's most controversial legislation has taken an unexpected turn. On Monday the 9th, Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze announced plans to create a government fund for NGOs that choose to register. Of course, pay them. Kobakhidze argues that donors are pressuring some NGOs to avoid registration by threatening to withdraw funds. He says that if these organizations are transparent and genuinely serve their country, they should register and benefit from government funding. However, critics suggest that the ruling party's move aims to create a government-friendly set of NGOs to boost their legitimacy in the upcoming October elections. First government grants are expected to be available in January 2025. Depending on the outcome of the elections, we all know what happens to the Russian law. More about NGOs. On Saturday the 7th at Deda Anna Park, hosted a presentation of a new election monitoring mission that unites 30 NGOs. The name of the campaign is My Vote for the EU, because the election is a referendum for people to decide whether they want a pro-Western government or a pro-Russian government. Nino Lomjadi, the former public defender of Georgia, stated that the purpose of the mission is first to oversee free and fair elections at the polling stations and second to provide training to every willing citizen who wishes to register as an observer. The plan is to cover polling stations both within Georgia and abroad. To register as an observer, follow the link in the show notes. Speaking of the EU, last week, members of the German Bundestag visited Georgia and held meetings with representatives of civil society and the opposition. In their joint statement, members of Germany's Foreign Relations Committee said that the current direction Otsneba is taking, with its authoritative tendencies and undemocratic actions, is not compatible with the European Union. This situation doesn't change. Germany will not support the start of the EU extension negotiations with Georgia. Prime Minister Kobakhidze and Chairman of the Parliament, Shalba Papuashvili, refused to meet with the Bundestag representatives, which was kind of nutty since Kobakhidze's reason for his refusal was recalling Michael Roth, another Bundestag member who visited Tbilisi during the Russian law protests and accused him of fostering a revolution. However, Roth was not a part of the current delegation. At this point, the only support Otsneba seems to be receiving from the international arena is from, you guessed her, Chester, Russia. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, previously praised Otsneba for adopting the Russian law, appropriately enough, which has led to the destruction of civil society in Russia. This week, he also gave an approving nod to the Georgian parliament for passing an anti-LGBTQ law. Through its second hearing, Lavrov mentioned that Georgia and Russia share a common motherland, the Soviet Union, and he's happy that Georgians guard their traditions, history, and national identity, for which they've earned criticism from the West. Let's move on to the politicians that the northern neighbor has failed to woo. A recent interview with El Figaro, Salome Zurabashvili, Georgia's president, discussed her future in politics, even though she's previously been silent on the matter. In response to a direct question from the interviewer, Zurabashvili stated that she is ready to continue her responsibilities for a second term. Due to changes in the Constitution, the next president will be appointed by whoever wins the October election and forms the government. So if Otsneba ends its 12-year run, she can be appointed as president by an opposition coalition. In that case, her priorities would include canceling recent laws that directly contravene Georgia's constitutional goal of joining the European Union. On that note about interviews, U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen recently spoke with the National Journal about the political situation in Georgia. As expected, the main points concerned the worsening relationship between the U.S. and Georgia, Russian law, and upcoming elections. Shaheen stated that during her meeting with Kulumbegashvili, the prime minister asked the U.S. to stop funding any Georgian organizations that might be critical of the ruling party. Kulumbegashvili responded to this statement by calling it a pure fabrication and a lie. Yeah. On Tuesday the 10th, a solidarity protest was held in support of Afgan Sadiqov, an Azerbaijani journalist who was detained in Tbilisi in August. Protesters demanded the Georgian government do not grant an extradition request by Azerbaijan, where he is officially wanted on charges of extortion and threats. His family members, local journalists, and NGOs who attended the protest say the charges are fabricated and he's being punished for criticizing the authoritative regime of Ilham Aliyev, Azerbaijan's president. Protests were held on Wednesday, the 11th, when participants of several month-long protests in Chiatura arrived in Tbilisi. They say that the mining works near Shugruti are destroying their houses. So far, their protests have gone unnoticed by the government. They arrived in the capital hoping that their voices will be heard louder in Tbilisi in front of Parliament, where they spent the night. Protesters attempted to set up tents, but the police stopped them. In business news, another Russian giant has entered the Georgian market. This time it's the e-commerce platform Ozon.ru, which is essentially Russia's version of Amazon. The company's been expanding its operations into post-Soviet states since 2021. The arrival of Ozon.ru, along with Yandex, which has been operating in Georgia for years, marks Russia's ever-growing economic interest in the country. Moving on, it was a significant week for Georgian culture. Kulumbegashvili's film April was awarded the Special Jury Prize at the Venice Film Festival. It's the first Georgian movie in 30 years to be featured in the main competition, the Venice Festival. The film follows the story of Nina, a gynecologist who faces accusations after a newborn's death. You can check out a review by Peter Bradshaw in The Guardian, link in the show notes. Close this edition, some sports news. Last week saw two separate occasions when football fans came out into the streets to celebrate the national team's success. Saturday the 7th, Georgia won an opening League of Nations match against the Czech Republic, scoring 4-1. Then, on Tuesday the 10th, the team won again, this time against Albania, on the opponent's home field. And that's it for this week. Thanks for turning to the Rorschach Georgia Update. You can connect with us on social media at Rorschach Georgia on Twitter and at Rorschach_Georgia on Instagram. Machandis.